can what you put on your skin impact your hormones. Everything you put on your skin is going to get into the bloodstream in about 15 to 30 seconds. So you do not want to put anything on your skin that you wouldn't directly put into your mouth. And this is hard for a lot of people to hear. They're like, wait, what do you mean? If you rub a substance on your skin, whatever's in there, it is going right into the bloodstream faster than it would get into the bloodstream if you were to eat it. You're tuned in to the Dr. Kinney Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Erin Kinney, a naturopathic doctor and speaker dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of your body and guiding you back into balance. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Kinney Show. This week, I am doing a Q&A podcast recording. So we're going to answer some questions that you guys have sent me over the last couple of weeks. Thank you always for sending your submissions. I love wanting to know what you guys want to hear about, and because I love putting out content. So if this episode spurs you to ask a question, please don't hesitate. You can email it to us at info@drerinkinney.com. You can also message us directly on Instagram at Dr. Kinney. So again, please let my team know what topics you want to hear about. What do you want me to answer for you? And if anyone ever has any guest recommendations as well, I love to hear, who you're interested in learning from. So, okay. First question we got was, what is your favorite post-antibiotic gut protocol? This is a great question. And, it's something that's really important because if you have to take antibiotics, and let's face it, sometimes antibiotics are needed. Sometimes we have to take an antibiotic, and that's okay. We're grateful for the fact that antibiotics exist, grateful for the fact that they can get in there and just kill things really quickly. But unfortunately, as many of you know, when you take an antibiotic, it's going to kill the bacteria we're trying to, but it also will kill a lot of the good flora in the digestive tract. So it's really important to, when you finish taking your antibiotic protocol, to rehabilitate and re-inoculate the digestive tract with the good flora. Now, another question that sometimes comes up along this line is, should I take a probiotic while I'm on the antibiotic? And that question, the answer to that is really, it's up to you, and it depends on how your body tolerates the antibiotics. It's not really going to help the aftermath if you take a probiotic while you're on the antibiotic, but it can help you tolerate and negate side effects while you're on it. So if you have a really sensitive stomach, and let's say you're taking a Z-Pak or doxycycline or something of that nature, taking a lactobacillus or a lactobacillus and a bifidobacter blend, because those are the two predominant bugs. If you take those guys together while you're on an antibiotic, again, it can reduce the potential for side effects like nausea, queasiness, and diarrhea. But again, it's not really going to help kind of what we're trying to work towards to keep the gut healthy post-antibiotic. And the biggest things that occur when you take an antibiotic, obviously it's going to kill off the good guy flora, which we don't want to do. So again, we want to re-inoculate the good guy flora. But one of the more longer term effects that can happen when the good guy flora gets killed, is that one of the jobs of the good flora in our digestive tract is to produce food for the cells that line the small intestine, which I like to call the epithelial cells. They're skin cells, so essentially skin cells. And it's really important that those cells stay really healthy. That's what helps keep what we call tight junction function. So leaky gut is something that is really common to develop after multiple rounds of antibiotics. You actually can develop it after one heavy dose of antibiotics if you're not, being really cognizant of what you do after the antibiotics. So again, those good guy flora, they provide food that feeds those cells. If we don't have enough of the good guy flora, those cells essentially starve a little bit, meaning they can shrivel up, they can become compromised, and then we're going to have more problems down the line. And this can lead to allergies, this can lead to asthma, it can lead to skin issues, it can lead to food sensitivities or food allergies. So, this is a great question because it's really important to make sure we are doing the right things post-antibiotics. So typically, I'm going to mention a couple of products today. I am not affiliated with any nature of these products. We do carry some of these in my office, but most of them you can get either through your healthcare practitioner. Some of them you can get on Amazon or at other, make sure you're buying these from a reputable source. I really like Claire Labs makes a supplement called Thyroid Complete. I like that one. They also make something called ABX support. ABX is shorthand for antibiotics. So this is a very specific blend that you can take As soon as you finish the antibiotic, you can start taking this. And here's the key with post-antibiotics. It's dose the probiotics a lot higher than you think you should. And also you want to take them a lot longer than you think you should. I have people like, I took it for a week. You need to take it for like 3 to 4 months. Because what we actually see is, yes, you will see a dip in the good flora kind of for that first week after, but we tend to see more problems like 3 to 4 months post-antibiotic in terms of gut flora or gut dysbiosis. So you really want to stay on a good probiotic for several months post-antibiotic. So I really like that ABX support. And then the latest kind of probiotic technology, if you will, that's come out are these things called spore biotics. And a spore probiotic is a little bit different. It's going to get in there and it's going to kind of inoculate. It's going to like recolonize essentially, but a little bit better than just your typical standard run of the mill probiotic. So Orthomolecular makes a really good one called Orthospore. I've been really big on Microbiome Labs lately. They make a product called Megaspore Biotic. These are all really great. And you can dose several of them together. So I've got a couple patients that were just on heavy duty antibiotics for several months for part of their Lyme protocol. And I have this one patient taking Megaspore, which is the Microbiome Labs. I have her taking Thyroid Complete by Claire Labs, and she's also taking her regular Garden of Life. And we're just dosing it high. So really, really helpful. Again, take more than you think you need. Always best to talk to your healthcare practitioner about this for your specific dosing, but that's kind of the message I like to give patients. I'm like, you're going to need to take it a little bit longer, and you definitely want to, like, if it says 1 a day, you want to take 3 or 4 a day. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but we want to put as many bugs back into the system as possible so that we don't get a drop off of any of the good guy flora. Now, the second thing that can be really, really helpful to do in this case is to take something that is going to heal the gut lining. So something that contains glutamine. I really like things that contain the herb marshmallow or althea. This is really like soothing and calming to the digestive tract. These are particularly helpful if you did have stomach or digestive upset while you were on the antibiotic, if you were having any diarrhea, any stomach pain. So there are a lot of products out there. You can just take a straight glutamine. I like Orthomolecular's product called GlutaShield. It's got some glutamine. It has some zinc in there. It has some vitamin A, all of ththings which help to heal the lining. So really the two biggest things are making sure you're doing something to kind of heal that lining and to like upregulate the dose of your probiotics. Third thing is make sure you're staying hydrated. And this could be drinking enough water. This could also be making sure you're adding in some electrolytes because, if you're drinking a ton of water and you're sweating a lot, let's say you might be low on your potassium, sodium, and chloride, and that can also affect those cells that line the small intestine. So proper hydration is really, really, really important. And along those lines, if you take a regular antihistamine, so a Zyrtec or a Claritin or something like that, those are very dehydrating to the cells that line the small intestine. So if you can get off of those, great. But if you have to take one of those, just make sure you're really, really focusing on hydration. And also I would definitely add in a gut healing supplement to make sure that we're not getting any of that leaky gut situation, because antibiotics plus antihistamine is not a great combo for, long-term gut health. All right. So that was a great question. I clearly had a lot to say about that. All right. Next question that I got. How can what you put on your skin impact your hormones? This is a great question. And I'm going to start this answer by saying that everything you put on your skin is going to get into the bloodstream in about 15 to 30 seconds. So you do not want to put anything on your skin that you wouldn't directly put into your mouth. And this is hard for a lot of people to hear. They're like, wait, what do you mean? If you rub a substance on your skin, whatever's in there, it is going right into the bloodstream faster than it would get into the bloodstream if you were to eat it. So what you put on your skin is going to directly impact your hormones and probably faster than what you ingest. Now, a lot of the lotions and the makeups and the things that we use contain certain chemicals that are not the best for our hormones. I could not sugarcoat this. They're really bad for your hormones, particularly anything that contains fragrance. And this is tough for a lot of people to hear because fragrance is in a lot of things and we like to smell good, and I get it. But fragrance is what we call an endocrine disruptor. It will directly impact your hormones, particularly your thyroid hormone. So, it's really interesting that thyroid issues are a major, major problem for women in the United States. It is probably one of the most common complaints that women will deal with. And I partially think that a lot of the thyroid issues are because our thyroid is the most sensitive organ to all of the chemicals that our body gets exposed to on a regular basis. And, it's really interesting. My sister has been in Europe for most of the summer, and she takes something for her thyroid, and she couldn't get it over there. And she was calling, and she's like, they don't carry any thyroid. So she's looking for like a thyroid herbal supplement. She's like, they don't even carry herbal thyroid supplements here because nobody here has thyroid problems. And probably there are people that have thyroid issues there. However, which was really interesting when we were talking about it, the EU bans so many more chemicals than the United States. So, if you're living in Europe, you're less exposed to chemicals. There are less chemicals onslaughting your body in a European environment than there are here. And interesting enough, they don't even carry thyroid support in their pharmacies because people aren't buying it because they don't need it. So I got a little bit off track, but what you put on your skin will directly impact your hormones. And there, again, it will lower thyroid function. And the other thing it can do, a lot of the things in creams and makeups are what we call xenoestrogens. So they are estrogen-like or estrogen-mimicking molecules. And so they can get into your body, and the body thinks it's estrogen, and it's very confusing. And it's also something that your liver has to break down. And if your liver is really focused on breaking down the onslaught of chemicals that are coming in through the skin, guess what? It's not going to do as good of a job breaking down other things that you ingest, maybe alcohol, caffeine. I find a lot of women, particularly in their 40s, 50s, start saying, wow, I can't tolerate caffeine as much. I can't tolerate alcohol. I sleep really poorly. I get really bad hangovers. This is usually because at this point in life, the body's particularly the liver is like, oh my gosh, I need a break. I am detoxing you from so many different things. And it's just your liver's too busy, right? So the less you can put on your skin when it comes to lotions and creams and makeups and deodorants and all the things that, this is really interesting to do an audit for you to just start from the beginning of your day and go through all the different things that you maybe put on your body. This whole line of discussion also applies to chemicals that you clean your house with, right? And I've done several episodes with people that are a little more, they can speak to this a little better than I can. If you want to go back and listen to them, we can put in the show notes which episodes those are. But stuff that you're touching, stuff that you're inhaling, stuff that you're breathing in, these are all going to get into your bloodstream pretty quickly. And so they are going to have an impact on your body. I'm going to share a personal story. A couple of years ago, right after I got divorced, I was dating, and if I ever went to someone's house, and there was a Glade plug-in or there was lots of chemicals, it was an instant nope, I can't do this anymore. And I would just be like, thank you, I'm done. And would walk out. It was like, I can't deal with this. Chemicals have a major impact on your hormones. I think that's what you were getting at in that question. If not, you can send me a message and we can answer another part of the question at another time. But bottom line here is, yes, be really cognizant about what you put on your body. The good news is there's lots of really great natural products you can use. The Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, is a great resource for trying to figure out, hey, is this product, what's in it? Should I be concerned? They give every product a grade, an A, B, C, D, E, or F grade. So if you want to go and find out hey, this is what I use on my skin every day, and find out if that's something that, is okay and you can keep using, great. And I would say that, you don't have to be 100% perfect with this unless you want to. It's okay to have a couple of products that are not getting A+ and super natural. I tell patients, I'm like, hey, if there's one thing, let's maybe say it's your foundation, or maybe you love your deodorant, or you love your lipstick that's not organic. That's okay, right? It's the total load that you're looking at. So if you're using, 15 to 20 products that have a lot of chemicals in them every day, that's a huge load on your body, and that's going to be a lot harder on your liver. If you can whittle some of that down, or swap out, let's say, your laundry detergent and swap out your cleaning that you use on your counters, if you swap out some of the things for a healthier, more natural alternative, you're going to give your liver a little bit more of a break, and that's going to be overall healthier for your whole body and particularly your hormones. All right. Next question was how to support your body post-IUD removal. Great question. So IUDs can be really great for some people. They can be fantastic. It's not something you have to take every day. You get it inserted. And there's some that, secrete a hormone like progestin. And there's some that are made out of copper that are no hormones. And again, some people do really well. Some people are like, this is not the thing for me, or you might take it out because you're trying to get pregnant. Anyways, this question is, how do you support your body post? Well, and so this would apply to post birth control, hormonal birth control of any kind. So the important thing to know here is when you're on birth control, your body's communication between your brain, particularly your pituitary gland and your hypothalamus and your ovaries is getting disrupted. You're getting, continuous levels of either an estrogen or progesterone. And typically what that will do is sometimes it will stop ovulation in estrogen only pills. And the progesterone ones, it's going to, mess with the lining buildup and whatnot. But the biggest message here is that your brain and your ovaries are no longer communicating properly. So when you come off of a birth control, the first thing that I do with patients is we want to get the brain and the ovaries back in sync. We want to get them working again. And I think setting expectations is really important. It takes about 3 to 4 months for that communication to get rewired and to work properly. So anytime after you discontinue a birth control, again, of any kind, you might see weird periods for a couple of months. Sometimes people don't get a period. Sometimes people bleed for 2 months. All of that is pretty normal because your body is trying to reestablish that normal rhythm. Now, there are things you can do to get that reestablished a little bit quicker. So one of my favorite things to do is what we call like a cycling treatment. So that would be taking a certain protocol from day 1 to day 14 in, the follicular phase or the estrogen dominant phase of the hormonal cycle, and then taking a different protocol from what we call the luteal phase, day 15 until about day 28. Sometimes this is great to combine with what we call seed cycling. And so seed cycling is you're eating, I always get this confused and I don't have it sitting in front of me. So excuse me. You'll grind the seeds up together. You can put them in a smoothie. You can take them orally. But basically what it does is these seeds, some of them are estrogen promoting and some of them are progesterone promoting. So I like combining that protocol I typically will do an herbal protocol in a similar way. Usually we'll do something for the first 14 days. We take an herb called cohosh or black cohosh. You've probably heard about this before if you're kind of in this world. So you do that from day 1 to day 14. And then you can take a dong quai, which is Vitex, and you take that from day 15 until day 28 or until you get a bleed. And then once you bleed, you would start back up on, the first part of that cycle. And what this does is it's kind of starting to tell the body, oh yeah, we're supposed to be in the estrogen phase. Oh yeah, we're supposed to be in the progesterone phase. So it kind of just starts to like re-inoculate. One of the other things that can be really helpful, particularly if you have any like liver congestion, like if you're having acne or you're having constipation or you're having weight gain, maybe some hair loss, those types of things can suggest that your liver is having a hard time processing the hormones that you were on. So a little bit of a liver detox or liver support can be really, really beneficial in this case or in that case. So, you can take a little bit of milk thistle. I really recommend like working on your diet when you come off post-IUD. So increasing veggies, making sure you're drinking tons of water. You can lower red meat, caffeine, and sugar. That can also help with like some of the estrogen stuff. Your particular question was progestin IUD removal. So, oftentimes women don't have as many issues coming off of those. Sometimes I will see if you had been taking that for a while, let's say you've been on the idea for a long time and you stopped getting a bleed, which is pretty common. Some women are like, yeah, I'm on the IUD. I don't get a period. And again, sometimes that happens, but sometimes when you take it out, particularly if you're still of cycling age, you might bleed for a while. And I usually tell women, I'm like, that it's kind of your body's natural way of like, that is your body detoxing. Now, it is super annoying to be bleeding for several weeks, but it is kind of the way your body's like, all right, I got to clear this out. So it's not always cause for concern. Those herbs that I mentioned, the cohosh and the dong quai, those can really help to like negate or to get that under control a little bit. And then I'm a really big fan of homeopathics. I use a lot of what we call organotherapy or sarcotherapy, where we actually are taking a homeopathic dose of the hypothalamus or the pituitary or the ovaries. And that can help like re-inoculate and kind of, or not re-inoculate, that can help like rejigger that communication again between the brain and the ovaries. So, okay. Another great question. this question I'd answered before, but I'll answer it again. What is the optimal vitamin D level? I'm getting checked and I want to know. Okay, so vitamin D levels range from about 30 to about 100. If you're under 30, you are definitely super deficient. I typically tell people to take vitamin D if they're anywhere under 60. 60 is a really ideal number. 60 to 80 is kind of like super. Above 80 is okay. We'll get closer to 100. That's a little too high. So again, 60 to 80 is like the optimal vitamin D range. So if you're under 30, and I didn't ask this, but I'm going to say this because people always ask this question afterwards. If you're under 30, I typically recommend taking about 10,000 IUs per day for a couple of months. And you want to recheck your levels to make sure you didn't go too high. I've had people where they go from like 15, we put them on 10,000 and like a month later, they're up at like 80. So then we'd want to like reduce the dose. I get really frustrated with vitamin D testing and insurance companies. They don't love to pay for vitamin D testing a lot, particularly if you're like retesting, but it is really, really important because too much vitamin D can be just as dangerous as not enough vitamin D. So we really want those levels, in that optimal range. And I've had patients before where they had really low vitamin D. They were put on really high doses, like 50,000 IUs once a week, and they just kind of kept on it. Now, some people don't absorb it very well and they're fine. Other people absorb it really well and they get way too much vitamin D. And symptoms of too much vitamin D can be abdominal pain, fatigue, dry hair, dry skin. There's a whole host of symptoms, which is not ideal, right? So, and too much vitamin D also can mess with your calcium. So it has a lot of problems. So it's really important to get your levels checked, see kind of what dose would be appropriate, and then get them rechecked several months after. So you can, one, make sure the dose you're taking is working, and two, make sure that you didn't get too much, right? So that's really important. Okay, next question. I've heard you talk about how to tell the difference between thyroid and adrenals. Could you talk about that a little bit more? Sure. I'm assuming you're meaning like, how do we tell the difference if like fatigue is related to thyroid more or related to adrenals? And so it's a little bit tricky and it's not really a simple answer because oftentimes they're intertwined. I feel like a lot of women with hypothyroidism also have some adrenal fatigue. And, and sometimes when there's been chronic stress that has led to adrenal fatigue, that stress has also had an impact on the thyroid. So they can often go hand in hand. My favorite question for me to kind of, as a clinician, to kind of figure out like, okay, am I more thinking this is thyroid related, like underlying cause, or more thinking this is adrenal underlying cause, is how someone feels after exercise. Typically, if someone is like straight up hypothyroid and they do not have enough thyroid hormone, exercise will make them feel like $1 million. And I don't mean just mentally. I mean physically. Like they will exercise, they'll be like exhausted and lethargic and super tired. They get themselves to the gym, they will feel amazing for the rest of the day. Now, someone, if their underlying issue is low cortisol or adrenal fatigue, they might feel tired. They get to the gym. They're going to feel mentally better when they exercise, but their energy is not going to go up after exercise. They're either going to stay the same or they might crash a few hours later. So really understanding like, do you feel great after exercise and do you stay feeling great for the rest of the day? Or do you feel great mentally for a little bit and then you crash? So, the first one would be like, that would be thyroid. And if you're crashing after exercise or if it's really hard for you to get into exercise, you're like, I just don't feel it. I'm really, really tired. That's going to be more likely that your adrenals are kind of the underlying cause. So that's the biggest thing that I'm able to tell when I'm just talking to a patient. I'm trying to get some history. Now on labs, oftentimes we're going to see a mixture of both. If cortisol is totally normal and hormones are, sex hormones are totally normal, particularly testosterone, and the thyroid's a little bit off, more likely it's going to be thyroid. If cortisol is low or if cortisol is high, or if cortisol is normal, but estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are in the tank, that usually indicates that we're more looking towards an adrenal issue. And again, and sometimes I've had patients where like adrenals were the underlying cause, but then their thyroid has also kind of suffered some fallout from that. So we kind of have both things going on at the same time. And this can be tricky. And I think, I would say at this point in where we are as society, particularly if you're struggling with a chronic health issue, probably your adrenals need some sort of support. That may not necessarily have to be a supplement, but it could be, hey, I need to make sure like I'm drinking an adrenal cocktail or I'm getting an appropriate amount of rest every day at night, but also in the middle of the day. Like I'm doing something to kind of help my body keep my cortisol levels in a good place. I'm regularly meditating. Just so I think like, yes, it can be important to differentiate which one was the underlying cause, but it's also like oftentimes it's both, I guess is my answer. So that was also a great question. And I am going to wrap this up today, but I'm going to do a part 2 to this Q&A session because I had a lot more questions. I just have to get on to my next recording. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you for sending your questions as always. And like I said, please continue to send them to me. You can email, you can DM me, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to connect with me on social media and leave a rating and/or a review. This helps grow the show so more people have access to this knowledge that leads to empowered healing. Love and light, and see you next week.